thanks for taking your seats. Man, you should see how great this room looks from up here. It's just amazing. Thank you all so much for that. Really appreciate it. My name is Mary Pat Teague. I'm on the board of the Design Center, and they asked me to kind of get everyone seated, which I'm happy to do. I also want to take a moment to thank you all for being here today and to thank our sponsors, our tremendous sponsors. We have over, I think it's 54 or 55 sponsors, and I'm just so impressed by all of you being here. And if anybody, questions how impressive our group of sponsors is, you should take a look at the screens on my right and my left, because they are the who's who of companies, organizations, institutions in the city of Nashville. So thank you all for that. I also want to take a moment to talk a little bit about the event and how anyone who's worked on one of these things knows that it doesn't just happen. It takes a lot of work, and first you have to have great co-chairs. And this year we really lucked out. We got the dynamic duo of Kim Hawkins and Steve Tuck to co-chair, and they've just been great. And it also takes a board, and we have a committed board, and they really stepped up this year. And finally, it takes a staff that just works the hours and just never complains and just does the work. And we have rock star staff of Gary Gaston, Ron Yearwood, and Abby Wheeler. So thank you all to them as well. And then I would like to take a moment to recognize our elected officials are here. Mayor Purcell will be joining us. Excuse me, Mayor Purcell, I'm looking right at you. Mayor Dean will be joining us shortly, but we also have former Mayor Bill Purcell, who is a good friend of the Design Center, who is here with us today, and council members Peter Westerholm and Anthony Davis. And thank you all for not only being here today, but all that you do for the city of Nashville. So enjoy your lunch. The program will begin shortly.
Thank you so much to everyone that's here for joining us for the annual luncheon of the Nashville Civic Design Center. It is a pleasure to be here. I am Kim Hawkins. I was the founding president of the Nashville Civic Design Center back in 2002, and I'm here with Steve Tuck, who was my successor as president in 2000, and I was in 2000, he was in 2002. So today we're going to take a moment just to kind of go a little bit over our beginnings, talk a little bit about this year's accomplishments, and look to our future. And what is really amazing is to think that it's been about 20 years since we first started thinking about the Design Center in Nashville from some very humble beginnings.
You know, Kim, it was like 1995 or 94. There was a lot of construction and development activity going on in Nashville, similar to today. And there was a group of us that got together and said, wouldn't it be great if we could all get on the same page about contemporary urban design issues? And so we decided that we needed to have a class. We met with Marlene at the University of Tennessee, and she brought Mark Cimini down from UT, and he taught a class of about 50 or 60 people for the first one. And for many years after that, several years, gave that class to other people as an interdisciplinary group of people going through these classes. Now, just for the fun of it, how many of y'all went through those classes? There were about 300 or 400, I think, that actually graduated from those classes at the time. Well, after the first class, there was a lot of discussion about, wow, we need to continue this discussion about projects that are being proposed in Nashville. And so the Urban Design Forum was created. We affiliated with the Vanderbilt Institute of Public Policy Studies. There were about 150 members. Of those, about 70 or 80 would show up in any one time, any month to discuss these projects. And from that group, the forum then started conversations, continued about the Design Center. How do we in Nashville get a design center? Knowing, I think the reason was knowing that design centers that were in other cities made a great and positive impact to that city. And then Kim sort of took the lead.
Well, from there I would really say Mayor Purcell took the lead. Because about 15 years ago in 1999, Mayor Purcell, who is with us again today and has been such a supporter all the way through, had just been elected, and he asked if I could serve on his transition team for issues of urban design and planning, and if I could take the lead on establishing a design center in Nashville. Little did I know what I was getting myself into. But with the input of many of you and from the input of many design centers around the country, and we had just a stellar ad hoc committee that pulled together and developed a white paper really outlining this organization to form a nonpartisan, third-party, nonprofit design center that would help us as a community, from a community standpoint, from a political standpoint, from a design standpoint, look towards making our future as a city together. So the Design Center was incorporated in actually December of 2000, and its first board of directors, we had UT's Mark Chimini as our Design Center. We had the support of Metro Nashville, as we continue to have, and we had great support from several key players who have continued to support us. And that includes the University of Tennessee, Dean Poole, thanks for being here today, Vanderbilt University, who has been there from the beginning and all the way through, and Steve and Judy Turner. Thank you so much. We would definitely not be here without you.
The organization's very fortunate also to have a great series of board of directors that have served the institution for this many years. And could I ask the current and past board members to stand for recognition, please? Current and past board members. Great. Thank you all. I'll skip that. We also owe much to the organizations that have sponsored this particular event. Many of those organizations have sponsored this year after year after year, and we really, really appreciate that. They obviously support the good work of the Design Center, and we're fortunate to have them again this year. I want to mention presenting sponsor, Earl Swenson Associates, Inc. Thank you all so much for doing that. The Keystone sponsors, Village Real Estate Services, the Scott C. Chambers Fund, Colliers International, the University of Tennessee, and the media sponsor is the Nashville Post. Could I have a hand for all of those, please? Thank you. We also have, and there's so many I won't read them out, but we have the Cornerstone and the Voussois sponsors that are on the screen and in your program. There are many of those. Thanks so much for all of our sponsors and everything you've done to support and help the Design Center. Thank you.
So from the very beginning, the Design Center's purpose has been to elevate the quality of Nashville's built environment and to promote public participation in creating a beautiful and functional city for all. For the past 7 years, the person who's been at the forefront of bringing the city's dreams to reality has been our mayor, Carl Dean. The mayor has been known to say Nashville's best days are ahead, so it seems appropriate that with today's theme of designing for our future, that I introduce to you our mayor, Carl Dean.
Well, thank you, Kim and Steve, for that kind introduction, and thank you for your visionary leadership to help with the founding in the Nashville Civic Design Center 14 years ago. I'd like to recognize, first of all, another visionary on this, Bill Purcell, who's with us, the former mayor, but also council members Anthony Davis and Peter Westerholm. We certainly appreciate their support and their attendance today. Without the founders' foresight and passion, the great work that the center has done and continues to do would not be possible. And I'm very thankful for all who made this possible. I'm excited to be here today as I understand that this is the 10th anniversary of the event and the most attended Plan of Nashville Luncheon in the Design Center's history. I'd like to thank and congratulate all the staff and partners for their important work in making Nashville a better place for all of its citizens, including projects such as the Plan of Nashville and the forthcoming Shaping Healthy Communities. The diversity around this room, filled with 500 people who work in design, development, transportation, social services, universities, government, and the general community, is a testament to Nashville's growth and strength, as well as the broad appeal of the Nashville Civic Design Center and the impact it is having. Today's theme is designing for the future, and that is something that I, of course, think about frequently. As a city, we have hit our stride, and that is something we should all be proud of, but a lot goes into designing a city that is both prosperous and livable for all of its citizens for today and tomorrow. Some of those factors include neighborhood design and development, certainly transportation, walkability and safety, open space, parks, and greenways. I could go on, but to me, the key to designing the future is focusing on the quality of place. And we are doing that by investing in all parts of our county. From the riverfront redevelopment, which will include a new amphitheater, open space, and greenways along our city's artery, the Cumberland River, to the new Nashville Sounds ballpark that will be operating next spring just north of downtown, to the park, library, hockey complex that just opened in Antioch, to the new police precinct on 12th Avenue South, to the new library we're about to open in Bellevue, to the Gulch pedestrian bridge, which will connect the Gulch to Sobro across the railroad tracks, to the more than 50 miles of new greenways that we have expanded and walked on as part of this year's Walk 100 Miles campaign, to the thousands of acres of open space and new parkland that we have acquired in Davidson County. We're investing in these things because that's how you keep a city strong, by constantly improving and constantly thinking about the future and the health of our citizens here. I believe that by improving the quality of place, we are improving the quality of life. As mayor, I have said that our best days are still ahead of us, and I feel very strongly about that. I am excited for the city, as excited as I've ever been, and very excited about our future. By designing and shaping a city that focuses on active, healthy living for all residents, we become a stronger city, a place where people and businesses want to put down roots and invest. I believe that we not only have the opportunity to allow Nashvillians today to live better lives by enjoying these resources, but we also have a responsibility to future generations. So thank you again for having me. I hope to see everybody on Sunday at 2 o'clock for the fun run, or 2:15 for the walk or run Mayor's 5K. Remember, it's totally free, and you can combine transportation with this, because on this day you can get on a Metro bus and say, I'm going to the Mayor's 5K, and it's totally free. Don't try that on Monday, but you can do it on Sunday. Thank you.
Now, Mayor, before you get too situated back in your seat, I have a little surprise for you. We want to get you it's a small gift, a token of our gratification for the work that you've done while being mayor. It's for those of you who have been a board member before or a former president of the organization, it's a hammer that is engraved with an inscription just thanking you for all the service you've done. Well, I just have to say, it's so exciting to see you all here, and again, thank you for your support year after year. It's really amazing. This year does mark the 10th year anniversary of the unveiling of the Plan of Nashville. Each year since its unveiling, we have gathered to celebrate the process that led to the creation of a community-based vision for how Nashville should look, grow, and function in the future. I'm so excited that the plan is still alive and adding to Nashville's vibrancy as a city. Here's a brief overview of some of the projects of the center from the last 12 months and a preview of what we have in store for next year. In May, the Design Center released Seeding Spaces, Inspiring Growth for Urban Agriculture in Nashville, Tennessee. This report documents existing urban agriculture projects and evaluates the benefits and challenges in building our local food system and explores policy recommendations for expanding urban agriculture in Nashville. In June, the Civic Design Center partnered with the Urban Land Institute Nashville to host a half-day program entitled Shaping Healthy Communities, Building Healthy Places. The program was funded by a National Urban Innovation Grant and featured a design charrette that used the Charlotte Pike Corridor as a case study. Multiple sites were analyzed along the pike to determine how design interventions can help create healthier communities. Images such as these help illustrate some of the ideas that were explored. In August, the Design Center released Reclaiming Public Space, Bankers Alley, to address pedestrian connectivity between the riverfront, 2nd Avenue, Printers Alley, the Arcade, 5th Avenue of the Arts. This project is a continuation of our Reclaiming Public Space series and will hopefully help guide improvements to this potentially vibrant new pedestrian connection. In September, the center hosted its 3rd annual Parking Day, an international event that showcases the numerous ways that even tiny public spaces can have an impact on creating vibrant street life. This year's event featured 35 on-street parking spaces turned parks in downtown Nashville. From a pirate ship to helium balloons, a mini amphitheater to a tiny honky-tonk, the creativity of the designers was matched only by the enthusiasm of the pedestrians strolling by and experiencing these beautiful spaces. Our Golden Cone Awards honors the groups that participate in Parking Day and presents trophies to participants in 10 different categories. At this year's event, Mayor Dean announced a pilot citywide parklet program that would allow on-street parking spaces to be converted to parks through a permitting process with the Metro Public Works Department. After promoting this concept for several years, we could not be more excited about seeing this come to fruition and look forward to Nashville's first parklet in the near future. The Civic Design Center's partnership with the University of Tennessee College of Architecture continually provides an incredible catalyst for promoting innovative design ideas for new projects in the city. Associate Professor T.K. Davis leads the work of 3 studios a year that are focused exclusively in Nashville and the Middle Tennessee region. Earlier this week, we published another volume in our Access and Livability series, focusing on the Antioch community. The report incorporates student design proposals that respond to the area's intense growth and envisions mass transit, office, retail, and residential uses that allow the area to function as a complete community. The Design Center will soon release a report that highlights student projects for transit-oriented development opportunities along the future rail commuter line connecting Nashville to Clarksville, Tennessee. And TK's current design studio is exploring TOD opportunities along the southern corridor connecting downtown Nashville to Franklin. We look forward to showcasing these project ideas at our holiday open house, which will be on December the 1st at the Civic Design Center, and you're all invited. I have to say, we're very thrilled to be joined today by Dean Scott Poole and the college faculty and staff who've driven down from Knoxville this morning to be with us. Thank you, Scott, for your continued support of the NCDC, of our mission. It is a relationship that we deeply cherish, and everyone understands the importance of that. So thank you very much. And also my gratification and all of ours to TK for his passion and devotion to working on so many wonderful projects in Nashville. And he's been doing that over the last 6 years. So thank you, TK. I don't know where you're seated at. TK? Okay. Hey, thank you. Today I'm thrilled to announce the launch of a new Kickstarter campaign that we've just announced, and this will help us take us to the next phase of implementation for our Design Your Neighborhood project. So I hope we can get the video keyed up, and we'll have a short video. Hi, my name is Gary Gaston with the Nashville Civic Design Center. In 2011, our organization created Design Your Neighborhood, a program to work with inner city kids in Nashville to teach them about architecture, urban planning, design, filmmaking, and graphic design. The program was a huge success. It was funded by the National Endowment for the Arts, and was released and sent to all high schools in Tennessee in 2011. I am here today to ask for your support for our Kickstarter campaign to turn Design Your Neighborhood into a nationwide web portal where communities all across the country can host a program similarly to what we did in Nashville.
Once students know the importance of community building and architecture and civic engagement, it is a drastic difference based off of how they used to react and act when just walking down the street.
The creative aspect that I didn't think that I had when I first started is just, it comes along every now and then, like when I really when I think about doing something, I'm just like, okay, well I can base, what I did in the past in Design Your Neighborhood on this project now.
People should support expanding because it's a great program. It has a great effect on kids.
I got to think more about ways to try to help improve the community instead of doing things to bring the community down.
The Design Your Neighborhood site will feature a free web portal so that community leaders, professional organizations, neighborhood groups can create scalable programs to offer within their own communities. The site will also feature a social media component so that student participants from different communities across the country can communicate about their ideas for improving the quality of their neighborhoods.
It is the foundation for students to take on their life and their communities.
The next generation is the future, and we need to teach them to love their communities.
I feel like that you all should support Design Your Neighborhood because it has helped me and can help others.
It was a learning experience, it was a growing experience, and I feel like kids, all over the country should have that chance to, do what I did, maybe even do more with, a program like this.
Thank you for your support.
Thank you! That's a wrap!
Feel it? Good. Okay. So that's a really exciting project. There's a documentary film that was done several years ago, and we're about to launch this web portal early next year. I'm very excited about it, and can't wait to get that started. If you're familiar with Kickstarter, it's a crowd-sourced fundraising source, so please help spread the word about it and send it out to your friends. And then finally, the primary focus of our work over the last 3 years has been exploring the relationships between design and our built environment and the relationship with public health. Our Shaping Healthy Communities project is supported through a partnership with the Nashville Public Health Department, Vanderbilt University, the Nashville Area MPO, and the Tennessee Department of Transportation. The long-awaited Shaping the Healthy Community, the Nashville Plan book, is nearing completion, and we anticipate a publication by Vanderbilt University Press next spring. And I want to also recognize we have Michael Ames, Deborah Brewington, and Christine Kraling here today, who are very close partners on that project, so thank you. Finally, I have to recognize our amazing staff, which has truly come together to make all of these events and projects possible. To our Assistant Design Director, Ron Yearwood, thanks for all you do. To our Design Fellow, Eric Hoke, Research Fellows, Abby Wheeler, Joe Mays, Keon Sawney, and intern Kristen McDaniel, thank you all for your time and devotion to the mission of the Design Center. Thanks. There is so much more going on at the organization than I have time to mention here in my brief remarks, but I encourage you to continue to be involved. Please visit the office in the upcoming year to see what we've got going on, participate in our programs. If you're not a member, we would encourage you to become one. Visit our website where all our projects are available to download. And again, thank you all for being here, and thank you for continued support.
Good afternoon, I'm David Kaline. In August of 2000, I was a new student in the Department of Urban Planning and Design, chaired by Alex Krieger at Harvard's Graduate School of Design. I was quickly staggered by the talent, ambition, and accomplishments of the other students, a collection of bright lights from all over the world come to sit at the feet of the faculty's foremost urban design thinkers. I was a rather out-of-place and paradoxical city enthusiast from a suburban farm in Tennessee, whose prevailing thought was, yikes. My classmates, with few exceptions, had their professional and intellectual sights trained on the largest, most globally relevant cities in the world: New York, Paris, Tokyo, Shanghai. Not sure at all where I would end up, but missing home, I was encouraged on a day I will never forget by a prediction Professor Krieger made in class. He prophesied, in paraphrase, "The future of urbanism will be made in significant part in medium-sized cities, American cities that are enterprising and creative, flying under the radar for now, but uniquely capable of civic entrepreneurship and eager to invent the new urban experience." It was something like that. When he offered this bit of foreknowledge, I thought to myself, I am from a city just like that. He's talking about Nashville. We are in this room because we are excited for our city, for its visionary leadership, and for the cranes that portend its new skyline. Now that Nashville is well above the radar, we are excited to hear today how we can be a leading innovator for the urban age. Alex Krieger holds a bachelor's degree in architecture from Cornell and a master's in city planning and urban design from Harvard. His career is as both educator and practitioner. He has 3 times been honored by Harvard as an outstanding teacher, and in 2007 was listed among Design Intelligence magazine's influential architectural educators. He has served as the chairman of the Department of Urban Planning and Design, the director of the Urban Design Program, the associate chairman of the Department of Architecture, and as senior planning advisor for Harvard's campus expansion across the Charles River. Appointed by President Obama to the U.S. Commission of Fine Arts, Professor Krieger serves on the Boston Civic Design Commission, the Providence, Rhode Island Capitol Center Commission, and the New England Holocaust Memorial Committee. He is also the director of the Mayor's Institute in City Design for the National Endowment for the Arts. He is a founding principal of Chan Krieger Sieniewicz, an architecture and urban design firm in Cambridge, known internationally for its dedication to improving place and life in major urban areas. And on behalf of the Nashville Civic Design Center, it's my honor to introduce our speaker today, Professor Alex Krieger.
Thank you very much, David. I don't remember saying any of what he said, but I'm sure it was something like that. My first question is, did you all leave anyone at home? It already speaks very well of the city that so many of you would come out for a luncheon on behalf of urban design. I guess I can look down there. So I've been very fortunate in my career. My own ways of preparing for an urban age has involved tearing down several highways, which I enjoy doing. For many years in Boston, in the so-called Big Dig, I've enjoyed narrowing roads substantially, in this case in Shanghai, from 12 lanes, you can see in the upper photograph up to the right, to a proper 4 lanes, a proper boulevard. And guess what? When you do that, look at that. The image on the bottom right shows that no one was there on the promenade. The image on the bottom left, on any given weekend now, 250,000 Chinese parade up and down this boulevard. The cars somehow get by. I've also been fortunate in my career to preparing for urban age to convert industrial territories into once more useful neighborhoods, open spaces, places to enjoy life. And I think I see after a day or so of being here that you're enjoying those things as well. So I'm sure I won't tell you anything you don't already know, but important things are worth listening to twice at least, right? All right. So again, this is the Montreal conversion of its harbor front, a summer scene up above, a winter scene down below. It's not moving. Yes, okay. This is the kind of the statement that you hear over and over, and it both kind of causes some concern, and also explains a little bit about why we're talking about an urban age. A couple of years ago, as the United Nations calculates these things, more than half of humanity, has now been identified as urban dwellers. That does not mean downtowns, by the way, or cities, but urban dwellers. Still, that's an amazing, amazing statistic. And of course, it will be up to 67% in the next couple of decades. A century ago, 15% or so people lived in anything remotely like urban areas. So we're still, as we become an urban species, we're still trying to figure out what that means. Right? Now, in a place like Hong Kong, you cannot deny what that means. In fact, it's kind of scary, in a way, exhilarating and scary. But the title of my talk should have really been entitled Preparing for America's Second Urban Age. If you were a European and you came to America around 1900 and came to New York or came to Chicago or Philadelphia or some other cities, you would have been just as shocked. Your jaw would have dropped as much. You would have wondered, what the heck is all of this stuff? Why is it necessary? As people who occasionally now from us go and visit a Shanghai or Beijing and wonder why the hell all this is necessary. This was our first urban age, and it was rather traumatizing, in fact, for many people, and so we invented a better idea. And that better idea was disaggregation, a suburban environment. And for a long time, it was a better idea. If you remember your Charles Dickens novels, London was not a particularly nice place to be towards the end of the 19th century. In fact, cities began so large, so congested, so diseased, so socially uncomfortable that America pioneered a solution to that, which was to disaggregate, right? Now, when, of course, Europeans come to a place like Charlotte, repeatedly one of the fastest growing cities in America, they wonder, where the heck is Charlotte? Right? It's somewhere in the trees over there, right? That's where we all have been for a long time. And we have created an environment over time in opposition to our first urban age in a way, to create, yes, little bitsy downtowns and then a bunch of stuff out there for living and somewhere else for recreating and somewhere else for working and somewhere else for shopping. Well, guess what? That age is coming to an end. The suburb will not disappear, but its apotheosis has been reached, absolutely. And I'll tell you why in a couple of minutes. Now, this is a little tricky. So now, of course, you cannot read anything, any literature about urbanization, so forth, without seeing images like this, right? Cities are back. City living is back. Sex in the City. Sounds pretty good, right? The happy city, right? And of course, corporations like IBM and so forth selling you smart cities and so forth. Well, all of that is a sign of something. And by the way, if you don't yet believe this, the next image should convince you further. Look at this. What am I doing wrong, Greg? Whoops, it went too fast. Here's a new product called Urban Decay. Right? Think about what that, it doesn't refer to, the Bronx 20 years ago, right? So there's something that emerged as kind of exotic, interesting, magical, different than the sort of generic environment that we've been creating to avoid the consequences of the first urban age. And it's upon us, and it's not a fad, it's actually a long-range trajectory, and again, I'll say something more about that in a second. Right. So, to prepare properly for cities, American cities, as you have been, to prepare properly for an urban age, our second urban age, these are 8 things that should be happening, and at least over the course of my day and a half here, many of which are happening in your city, right? But before we can talk about each one of them briefly, I assure you, we have to do something else. We have to ask ourselves, what are cities for? What are cities for? Well, the answer for a couple hundred years, especially from economists and folks like that, was, well, cities are about jobs. And of course that's true. Less so than they were about 100 years ago. Certainly less so in a post-industrial society than, say, still in China, where these not quite so happy folks are still flocking to cities because of jobs. But let me resort to an ancient commentator on cities, that fellow up there, Aristotle, right? And what did he say over 2,000 years ago about cities? So he said, people first come to cities for security. A little bit odd for us to think about those terms relative to 9/11 and things like that, but certainly true historically. He then said, they stayed for economic opportunity. Well, that's jobs, right? But he said, 2,000 years ago, he said, but they would remain there for the good life. And that is an incredibly prophetic statement made 2,000 years ago, and it should be on our lips much more than jobs. So what constitutes a good life or a quality of life? And how do you find it now in our cities? Right? So the first is to make sure that you have great places to live and diverse places to live. And that, to some extent, you seem to be doing, although affordability, as I understand it, not just here, but around the country, is becoming a problem. Right? It is essential, of course, to create great and diverse places to live. Now, why is that? It seems to be a truism. Well, because that particular document up above, which was a federal government-issued document in the 1930s, and this scene, this lovely scene, of a family, a mother at home, kids, a little early TV, the so-called American dream, clearly in a suburban environment, right? So for a long time, a good place to live represented that. And of course, you lived not square feet, you know, life by the square foot. That kind of sucked, right? In the soot. You needed to live life by the acre. And of course, that still tends to be true and familiar to many people. But here's why this is no longer quite as universal, not even close to being universal desire as it seemed to be the case, and what we aimed for a long time, right? So, if this was a smaller group, I would have asked you a question about what percentage of households in America right now constitute a nuclear family, husband, wife, a couple of kids, a dog. And I bet you would have guessed a heck of a lot more than 18%. A heck of a lot more. You might have guessed 60%, as it might have been the case in the 19th century. You might have guessed 40% if you sort of figured out that where it was going down. It is less than 20%. Now, what does that mean? That's not about the end of families. It's not about, you know, we're no longer marrying each other and so forth, or bearing kids. What it means, actually, is that as our life expectancy increases, and my 20-year-old son, I hope, will live into his 90s, although this is not wood, apparently, so I better stop. The percentage of his lifetime dedicated to family building, child rearing, is increasingly smaller. And what does that mean? For the much larger length of time when the young stay young longer, the so-called millennials and all those who preceded them, and for the substantial length of time that folks like me hope, I'm about to do this, but probably it's bad luck, hope to stay on the planet longer, that scene that just passed is no longer the only preferred place, right? That's what explains this change, right? For 80% of households, a fair number of those require other kinds of things to satisfy their lifestyle, their expectations at that moment in their life, right? The young who stay young into their 30s, and us old people who hopefully stay around much longer. And of course, what we want? We don't want to mow lawns. We want to be close to cool restaurants and cafes and museums and cultural activities and performances like last night. We stayed at a hotel nearby. We were charmed by all that was happening in Nashville. Stay close to their young kids who want to stay, who are staying in the city and so forth. So think about the consequences of that. It's not about the so-called creative class or entrepreneurship, as important that is. It's the fact that 80% of households at any given moment, no longer, a good chunk of them no longer think about the single-family home as the only place where they would thrive as a unit. And that's why this is not, a fad, cityness. It's a long-term trend, because that percentage of households that are devoted to families are not going to rise dramatically. In fact, it might even keep shrinking as our life expectancy hopefully keeps increasing. That's why the diversity of housing, which occurs not in a suburban area, but exactly in a city, is partially what attracts more of those households for whatever reason. All right, well, the second thing has to do, of course, with the nature of our post-industrial economies, and indeed entrepreneurship, and indeed innovation, and with that comes a need, right, not to spend a lifetime in a factory, but a lifetime in propinquity, in interacting with others, right? Many of these innovation economies are about seeking out others, either in your discipline or other discipline, and to create innovation precisely through interdisciplinary activity, as opposed to in a channelized, specialized way. So, of course, where does that happen? Where does sociability happen? Where does your contacts to others, either like yourself or not, happen? Well, hardly in a very low-dense environment somewhere far away, but precisely in a city, in a downtown area, in a center area, right? So that's the second reason why, of course, there is this tremendous pull, in addition to household, in addition to demographics, that in fact people are attracted to cities these days, right? So, of course, Boston has risen phoenix-like from being the Detroit of the 1950s, right? Why? Because of our post-industrial economies, because of our eds and meds. And we call places innovation centers. We don't need to call them that, because, in fact, the basis of innovation has to do with bringing people unlike each other across very different disciplines into a situation where they can interact and thrive as a result. So that's the second very important issue. And the third issue, because of all those folks who want to now be part of a more urbane culture, is to make it cool. I know it's not a technical term, but it's relatively important, and you know that. And of course, Nashville's cool in your own way, right? And it should stay in your own way. That was not a. I guess I should go on. So, here's a wonderful project, right, from Baton Rouge, right, where LSU finally was convinced to bring a piece of itself into downtown Baton Rouge. And look at that, a crazy little building on top of an old historic building, next to housing as well, with a wonderful little rooftop restaurant on the roof of the old building overlooking Mississippi. That's cool. And it's one of the ways in which you are not a kind of fuddy-duddy about history. You're not about trying to separate things. In fact, you're trying to bring as many people into a setting in which they individually and collectively can thrive, right? I love going to Vienna, Austria, not because of its, its old ancient downtown, as beautiful as it is, but look at these images. Vienna is not afraid to do something crazy. So a certain amount of that craziness actually is the nature of urbanism, interaction, sociability, propinquity. And that's what cities have to keep finding ways to do so, as you have, of course, in order to continue to thrive and attract a few more percentages of those 80% of households who are not so keen at the moment of getting into a suburban environment. And the fourth thing, by the way, you all know these things, and you have been performing in response to these things, especially the design center, right, is to make sure that things are close together rather than far apart, right? So in a project that we've been doing in your nation's capital, right? We have been using the slogan right from the London subway system. Some of you might recognize that. They say, mind the gap. That is the most important planning slogan that I know of. Mind the gap, right? That is how not to separate ourselves farther and farther apart, but in fact how to overcome the separations that we have been making in the cities for decades so as to fill them in, and as a result, gain the benefit of all that requires. So for example, look at South Capitol Street. It's a L'Enfant Boulevard in Washington, D.C. It is a highway. Look at that, leading to the Capitol. And of course, it happens to lead to also undesirable neighborhoods. So in this portion of planning, we have been redesigning South Capitol Street into a proper boulevard. And guess what, right? It will function better that way, much better than as a highway. And guess what? Even as it's being planned and proceeded, forget the ballpark, look at all those cranes that are now heading southward, where they never did, in response to the creation of a better, more normative streetscape environment. So mind the gaps as you keep planning inside and on the periphery of your city. All right. The next thing, again, you know this very well, you are the home of a particular set of cultures. Cultural plenty is a characteristic of an urban age. Because again, that's what attracts people as opposed to wanting to be together rather than apart, either for business or for pleasure. So, you all have heard about, Bilbao and this and that and so forth. Forget about Bilbao. Go look at Louisville, Kentucky. It's one of your neighbors. They've done an amazing array of things of trying to create cultural expansions in a variety of, profound and silly ways. So there's the kind of I'm sure you've all seen it, the giant baseball bat. Who would have thought? Or this amazing hotel. I encourage you all to stay there. And I heard that you may be getting one of these hotels. Right, look at that. It's not shy to put in penguins, plastic penguins on its roof, and a great piece of art in every single room in that hotel. Or to build a museum for Muhammad Ali, one of its, of course, great citizens. And as you look closely at that facade, you see Muhammad Ali boxing. So Louisville is one of those great places that did not pine for its history entirely, but in fact created a variety of cultures, both to preserve and expand its sense of being a great place to be, to enhance the quality of life. Right. The next one and we all struggle with this in America, right? And you've seen diagrams like this, I'm sure, about how much more efficient it would be if we walked more as opposed to drive in our cars. And it's very hard to alter a century of providing mobility through big metal boxes than it is to go backwards. I'm not naive or foolish about this, but you must. You must. By the way, notice the little 5-person family down there on a little motorcycle, huh? Wouldn't that be cool if we all bent around that way? Maybe a little bit insecure, right? All right. Here's Beijing, right? This is a photograph at about 6 a.m. in the morning, right? Beijing is going to prove much quicker than because we pretended otherwise. You are not going to solve congestion through automobiles. You are not. You are simply not. The next million people cannot all be driving, that will come to Nashville, cannot be driving their SUVs. It will simply be tougher and tougher. So you have to do something else. Tentatively, but with a long-term projection about trying to overcome our utter dependence on the car. Let me show you one example, perhaps the most dramatic for me, right? And that's to do with this image. You may not even recognize this. This is a light rail system built recently in Jerusalem, connecting East Jerusalem, mostly where the Palestinian people live under the Israeli control, of course, and New Jerusalem, West Jerusalem. And look at who's on that car, right? Look at those two folks. They're kind of ignoring each other, aren't they? But they're together. One of the things that a transit system does, actually, is to again, create some sense of social interaction. I assure you that there are not too many places, and especially outside of some old souks in the old city, that Arabs and Jews are even near each other. There they are, all taking that transit system. Think about that. Think about the potential of that. But they're not quite facing each other still, nonetheless. But it's a small step forward, right? All right, here's my hero. He was also a former student of mine, not that he learned anything from me, but he became the mayor of Seoul and the president of Korea. For those of you who are kind of trying to alter one of your highways, as I understand, and I should be careful of time, I suppose, right? How am I doing? Not too bad, yeah. So he goes back to Seoul, by the way, one of the most congested cities on the planet right now, for those of you who visited that, right? And there's a big highway right there, and it needed to be expanded. And this gentleman said, no, I'm just going to take it down. And of course, they thought he was nuts. And he just said, no, we'll just get rid of it. And you may not believe this, but he did. There's what it looks like now, that same place. And just as I go through a couple of these images, why is this happening? Oh, yes, okay. So, there's the highway down lower left, and there's this incredible 10-kilometer stretch of just wonderful places to be. It was an old creek, of course. It became a kind of an open sewer. It needed to be covered. It was covered by a road at the beginning. That wasn't enough. It was covered by a road on top of the road below. And that's what it looked like. Now notice, by the way, also what the adjacent buildings look like when it was a highway. And notice the scale of the adjacent buildings once it became a great public space. If you missed that, right? So highways don't bring tremendous amounts of fabulous urban development, but a place like that did. And by the way, the air is appreciably cleaner, that is quantitatively cleaner now in this portion, of course, of Seoul, despite the massive enlargement in buildings. So there's a kind of a lesson there. Now, I'm not suggesting that all highways have to be buried or gone away, but I am suggesting that we need to think a bit more innovatively and long-term about what creates a good place to live, right? And the Aristotelian sense of the term of defining what cities ultimately should be about. All right, I'm almost done. I left out greening the city because, of course, you know all about how important that is just for our planet, if not just for Nashville. So I end with this image from Portland, Oregon. You might have something similar here. It's a lovely thought. Keep Portland weird. As opposed to what? As opposed to generic, ordinary, uninteresting, boring, unworthy of all of our attentions as society. So we escape. Keep Portland weird. So an example some time ago of a project we were involved with in Providence, the smallest capital of our smallest state. Happens to have the biggest mother state capital, but there it is up there. And look at that. In the 1950s, 60s, 70s, and you have examples like this, I'm sure, all over Nashville, there was nothing between the Capitol and the downtown, just below in the image, and a bunch of abandoned railroad tracks and a buried river, right? So through all kinds of hard work and federal dollars for train adjustment and all this stuff, it eventually began to be realized that that's not a good thing. And so a street was built connecting the State House to the downtown. The river was daylighted, a way to get down to the river, just like you're doing here, right? And I want to show you this image. This is one of the great modern pagan rites in modern America. What did the great art students at the Rhode Island School of Design did? They started to create a bi-weekly festival. They put giant bonfires in the river. They put in very large music, not not like yours, right? Not as good. And of course, I had to say that, Mayor Purcell, right? And so twice a month, people come as far away as Boston, New York, to just hang out there, to hang out in the center of a city. All right, so I'm done. So, what's a good urban place? What's a good urban place have to become in order to take advantage of the 80% of households who may find their way there because they would like to be in a good place? All right, it's to be connected, not isolated. It's to have convenience. It's not have to travel unnecessarily. It's to be seductive. It's to be full as opposed to empty. Or God hope, not congested, which is all of our fears, undue fears. It's to be informal. It's to be distinct, very important, as opposed to generic. It's to be multifunctional, of course. It's to be a local hangout and a tourist attraction. It's to be multi-generational. We tend to forget that. That's where the 80% are, the young and the old. And the middle, for a while in a person's lifetime, will still find a better life, perhaps, in a suburban environment. And it should be fun, right? Simply fun, or at least intriguing, which of course is what it is for millennials who may have grown up in a suburban environment and find that not so intriguing, apart from their career objectives and so forth. Okay, so, but I have to end on a slightly cautious note, and we should spend a minute on this cartoon. Now, to some extent, of course, the cartoon deals with race, but think of it actually more in terms of demographics again and income. And I think we should all read it together, except that I can't. So, whites live in cities, the crowning glory of civilization, somebody says. Minorities move into cities, and somebody says hello, and somebody says goodbye. Whites flee cities, leave cities to the suburbs, and they say, it's better there. Whites move into second-ring suburbs. Blacks or poorer people or middle-class people, right, which is the way it should be now, right? Then, right, minorities move back into cities. Move suburbs, whites move back into cities and say it worked. Now again, the cartoon deals with race, and that's not, of course, not unimportant, obviously. But here's the potential, here's the important, very important task ahead as we rediscover the pleasures of urban living, where quality of life is paramount, is make sure that it does not, in a different way, displace those who can no longer afford to be here. So, keep Nashville weird in your own way. Don't make it into a Disneyland, however. And make sure, of course, that access and affordability and justice remains for all of your citizens. Thank you very much.
Thanks again, Alex. I'm Ryan Doyle, current board president of the Nashville Civic Design Center. I'd like to once again thank all of our sponsors for making today and the Civic Design Center's ongoing work possible. This year's luncheon has raised a record amount of funding that enables the center to continue our mission of improving the quality of life in Nashville through the built environment. And again, this success could not have been accomplished without the leadership of our co-chairs, Kim Hawkins and Sieb Tuck, so thank you. Please. I would also like to personally thank Mary Pat Teague for the focus and leadership she brought to the team who organized this event. And I'd also like to ask Gary and Ron and Abby Wheeler to stand up just so you all know who they are. Next time you see them, if you could give them a high five. We couldn't accomplish any of our work without the creativity and passion and hard work they bring to the Design Center every day. So thank you to you guys. So a few dates to remember. I'd like to reiterate for you to mark your calendars for December 1st at our holiday open house. In addition to the opportunity to enjoy the season with friends, the student work of T.K. Davis and the University of Tennessee's Urban Design Studio will be on display. And just to reiterate, this semester they're focusing on transit-oriented development on the southern I-65 corridor, which seems pretty timely given the recent transit discussions. So, what's that? 5 p.m. according to Mr. Gaston. We are also excited to announce that the Nashville Civic Design Center will host a mayoral forum on the evening of Tuesday, February 24th, in partnership with the Andrews Institute for Civic Leadership at Lipscomb University. It should prove to be an exciting discussion focused on our city's dynamic future. Finally, it goes without saying that each of you are welcome and encouraged to stop by the Design Center in the upcoming year, attend our events, and get involved. We appreciate you all for joining us today, and thank you.